First of all, thank you for inviting me as a speaker. Thank you, organizers. It's my honor to speak at this very important forum, which gives a unique opportunity to discuss the most emerging and important issues about peace and democracy in the unpredicted geopolitical environment. I would like to emphasize the significance of ICD and its forum on democracy and peace. The Academy serves as a very important platform for fostering understanding, promoting dialogue, and advancing the values of democracy and peace. The Forum on Democracy and Peace in particular serves as an important platform for discussions on democratic governance, human rights, and conflict resolution. In a world where democratic values are still challenged, it's essential to create spaces where experts, policymakers, and activists can come together and share experiences, best practices, and innovative solutions. The forum provides a unique opportunity to learn from each other and work towards a more professional, peaceful, and democratic world. Before I start to focus on Georgia and region, I'd like to mention the importance and the role of Germany in developing Georgia. From the regaining independence, Georgia and Germany have exceptional relations and this partnership and close partnership. In our bilateral relations, besides dynamism and exchange of high-level visits, we witnessed unprecedented active interaction on all levels, implementation of joint projects and expansion of cultural and people-to-people contacts. There are hardly any sphere left where German experts are not advising us in the reforms implementation process, including democracy, human rights, rule of law, defense, cybersecurity, strategic communication, e-governments, culture, education, public administration, and more. Germany is one of the strongest supporters of Georgian sovereignty, territorial integrity, and EU and thank you. And EU-NATO integration process. Here is famous photo. It's ex-president of Georgia, Eduard Shevardnadze, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Germany, Hans-Dietrich Genscher. And also I would like to mention that Germany was the first state which established its embassy in Georgia when Georgia regained its independence in 1991, and in 1993 Germany established its embassy. Since the restoration of the independence, Georgia has been facing many challenges with the huge support of our partners. We have been able to transform Georgia from failed state to forerunner country in the Caucasus and Eastern Partnership region in almost all fields. Here is a picture for comparison. It's Georgia in 1991 and it's Georgia now. From 1991, we witnessed political instability in Georgia, civil war, occupation of Georgian territories by Russian Federation, corruption, and lack of transparent governance. However, the people of Georgia were determined to bring about change and ensure that their voices were heard. Thus began a journey towards democratic reforms that would shape the country's destiny. Georgia embarked on a path of comprehensive reforms aimed at strengthening democratic institutions, promoting the rule of law, and combating corruption. These reforms were instrumental in ensuring a high-level playing field for all citizens and creating an environment conducive to economic growth and social progress. During the last 25 years, several transnational projects have been implemented which increase the role of Georgia as a regional player. Here are some projects. This is Baku-Tbilisi Ceyhan oil pipeline, which transports oil from Azerbaijan to Turkey and then from Turkey to Europe. Another is Baku-Tbilisi Erzurum gas pipeline, which transports with the same way gas Also, Baku-Tbilisi-Kars Railway, it's a new project which connects Asia and Europe with a railway, and Georgia becomes a part of the southern gas corridor. Amid the war in Ukraine, we witnessed that the amount of transportation of gas and oil has dramatically increased through this pipelines. And now we are in progress to establish two transnational projects. The one is actually a deep sea port. It's a big port, deep sea port, which will be able to receive Panamax type ships, and the role of Georgia in connectivity and transportation will be increased. And another project is Hungary, Romania, Georgia, and Azerbaijan Black Sea electricity project. According to this project, electricity resources will go from Georgia and from Azerbaijan to Europe, to Hungary and Romania, and this will strengthen the European Union's energy security. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has put the world, as well as Georgia, in front of a number of challenges. But along to these challenges, it has opened up a number of windows of opportunities for Georgia. After the start of the war in Ukraine, in the last 2 years, the economic growth in Georgia was about 10% per year. So it's very big numbers, which is due to increased number of goods transportation from Asia to Europe, bypassing Russia on the one hand, and on the other hand, the increase of gas and oil supply from Azerbaijan to Europe through Georgia. If you look at international rankings which are evaluating Georgian democracy status, you will find that for many years we've been a success stories for our neighboring countries when we speak about democracy, and now I will want to figure out some rankings about Georgia. Internationally, most recognized organizations such as Transparency International, World Justice Project, or Freedom House ranked Georgia as a leader among Eastern European and Central Asian countries. Some rankings, according to some rankings, Georgia is even on higher levels than members of the G7 or European Union. Georgia's ranking in the European Research Center for Anti-Corruption and State Building, latest Transparency in the Time of War Index 2023, has jumped from 44th to 17th place. Georgia is ahead of 15 European Union member states and 4 G7 states. Also, in Global Corruption Index 2022 by Transparency International, Georgia ranks for 41th among 180 countries, advancing by 4 points after 2021, and represents regional leader among 18 Eastern European and Central Asian countries. Moreover, according to Corruption Perception Index 2022, Georgia advances by 1 point, ranks first among Eastern Partnership and Western Balkan countries, and is also ahead of 9 European Union countries. According to Rule of Law Index 2022 survey by the World Justice Project, Georgia ranked 49th across 140 countries and is the regional leader among 14 Eastern Europe and Central Asian countries. Herewith, Georgia ranks 31st amongst 140 countries in the component of absence of corruption in the Rule of Law Index 22. And the last but not least, according to several researches, Georgia has #1 budget when we speak about openness. So this is very briefly our rankings, which indicates the level of our democracy, and you can see that Georgia has a success stories. Many countries from Africa, Asia, or Latin America usually are coming to Georgia and are studying our best practices, especially in e-governance, and that's why we became like a hub which shares its experience with countries which are trying to increase their democracy level and strengthen their governance. Now I would like to move to security issues. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has turned the global security environment upside down and made all countries think about the effectiveness of the existing security architecture. It's clear that the process of revising the international order has already begun, and it's not excluded that in the near future we will witness the formation of new scientific, theoretical, or practical approaches to international relations and global security. Russia, with its invasion of Ukraine, once again confirmed its imperialistic aspirations, which implies the restoration of Soviet Union in a new forms. One of Putin's nightmares is to see democratic and liberal Russia, along with the increased influence of the EU and US across its borders, which means the end of Putin's regime. Putin cannot adapt to the strong and democratic states on his borders because he believes that the democratization process may also spill over to Russia and from the bordering countries, which will bring catastrophic results for the existing government. What has been going in Ukraine more than 1 year now is not an ordinary war between two states. It's clear that in a struggle that is taking place on the territory of Ukraine, on one side we have the authoritarian, totalitarian regimes, and on the other side the liberal democratic world. In this great geopolitical game, only two post-Soviet countries are left which are trying to advance democracy and become the full members of the European Union and the NATO. These countries are Georgia and Ukraine, which are the last pieces of, Putin's puzzle. Europe is well aware that without Ukraine it will be impossible to restrain the Russian ideology, and it will be impossible to restrain Russia from gaining influence on the wider Black Sea region, because Ukraine together with Georgia act as a strongholds for the West that prevent Russia from gaining hegemony on the whole Black Sea and Caucasus regions. In the last decades, we have witnessed Russia's neighboring countries, such as Georgia, Ukraine, and Moldova, began a rapid democratization process. Georgia became the first victim of Russia in early 90s. Everyone is speaking about 2008 invasion, but everything started in early 90s when we have a proxy war with Russia, and they took our region of Abkhazia from us. Then in 2008 there was a Russian invasion in Georgia which resulted in the occupation of 20% of Georgian territories. This invasion was intended to change Georgian pro-Western aspiration and suspend democratic development, but fortunately Russia did not succeed, and still we are aspiring to our values. If we focus on regional challenges, since 2008 Georgia has been warning Western partners to adopt a tougher and more rigid stance towards Russia, because if Russia did not receive an appropriate response from the West, then it would be a green light for its next invasion. The West did not take into account this warning, and indeed in 2014 we saw Russia annex Crimea and continues its aggression in Ukraine today as well. Amid the ongoing war in Ukraine, when the whole world is focused on this horror, the Caucasus region is no less full of threats and challenges. As I mentioned, 20% of Georgian territories are still occupied by Russia. Russian troops are in 38 kilometers from Georgian capital Tbilisi, and Azerbaijan-Armenian relations are still very tense. After the invasion of Ukraine, Moscow has intensified the annexation of occupied regions of Georgia, causing severe instability on the ground. As a result, the population is denied of free movement. Georgia citizens are abducted and illegally detained on daily basis. Georgia children are denied to right to study in their own language, and Georgian villages are renamed, and there are some attempts to continuously erase Georgian historical traces. We remain committed to peacefully resolving these conflicts, and we use international arena and all political and diplomatic tools in order to restore our our territories. In its ongoing actions, Russia seeks to undermine the statehood and independence of Ukraine, Georgia, and other countries in its desired sphere of influence. Furthermore, as a result of Russian aggressions against Ukraine, everybody now realizes how vital is the Black Sea for European security. And Georgia, as one of the littoral states, is well positioned to play a significant role in this securitization process, especially now that we have intensified our efforts to facilitate regional peace and stability. Currently, Georgia has a strategic partnership with Turkey and Azerbaijan and close and friendly relations with Armenia. Our ties with all three countries are an all-time high level. These relations are on highest historical level. Official Tbilisi enjoys also high trust both in Baku and Yerevan as well. During the last military conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, so-called the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War in 2020, Georgia clearly showed both countries that its main interest is to promote peace and stability in the region, which was expressed in exact steps. Despite numerous requests from both Armenia and Azerbaijan during their military confrontation, Georgia did not take the side of any country and tried as much as possible to help de-escalate the process. It was after these processes that the trust towards Georgia from both countries became even stronger. Georgia is committed to promote rapprochement between Armenia and Azerbaijan. On the governmental level, in 2021, Georgia has already initiated the Peaceful Neighborhood initiative to promote stability in the South Caucasus region. In addition to the Peaceful Neighborhood initiative, we suggested to use Tbilisi for several discussions on this critical issue, and it was succeeded as well. The foreign ministers of Armenia and Azerbaijan were already in Tbilisi, and they conducted negotiations. And these negotiations were under Georgia's mediation. Also, we suggested both states to use parliamentary dimension to bring them closer together. For information, as it was mentioned, I represent the Foreign Relations Committee of the Georgian Parliament, and we have several formats such as Georgia, Azerbaijan, Turkey Foreign Committees Parliamentary Assembly, and this year we have already launched Georgia-Armenia Parliamentary Assembly, and we consider this format as a tool to mediate Armenia and Azerbaijan on parliamentary level. I would also like to touch a very important case of brokering a deal among Azerbaijan and Armenia by Georgia and the US that included Baku's release of 15 Armenian prisoners of war in exchange for getting a map of landmines in Agdam district. This process was also mediated by Georgian side, and this was also a success story when we speak about the role of Georgia in this situation. Georgia championed its vital and challenging role of a mediator between two states, according to these facts. But there were much more cases regarding this issue. Georgia is a strong, dedicated, and reliable partner for the West. That intends to facilitate creation of a stable and safe environment in the region. Georgia has served and will continue to serve as an honest broker between Armenia and Azerbaijan. The South Caucasus region has witnessed its fair share of challenges, but we must remain resolute in our pursuit of lasting peace. In this process is crucial the Western engagement in above mentioned process. On the one hand, EU and the US must politically support Georgia in mediation. We realize that Baku and Yerevan has a higher trust towards official Tbilisi than to several European countries. I will not go into details, so that's why West should support, not engaged in this process. Alone, Georgia has not enough political weight to mediate this process fully, but with political support of the West, Georgian political weight will become stronger. And if the West will support this process, this will become a catalyst to attract both states to participate more actively in mediation and facilitation by Georgia. Another thing I'd like to mention is Georgia's European and Euro-Atlantic integration. If Georgia will get the EU candidate status this year, this will also play a crucial role in supporting regional peace and stability. Georgia can become a bridge to Europe for Azerbaijan and Armenia and other countries, other neighboring countries, which aspire to strengthen their relations with the West. And to conclude, I want to mention that Russian invasion in Ukraine dramatically changed the international order. In this turbulence, the center of gravity is changing and moving to the Black Sea region, and the role of Caucasus is increasing and becoming more vital for European security. For years, the European Union was largely dependent on Russian energy resources, and the transportation of various goods from countries of Asia was mainly carried out through Russia. After Russian invasion of Ukraine, the EU finally realized that dependence on Russia in terms of energy and transit gives the Kremlin additional leverage over Europe, which undermines European security and hinders EU decision-making, boldness and flexibility. Taking into consideration the above-mentioned factors, Europe has started revision of its energy and economic policy. Since February 2022, we have seen that Europe has significantly reduced imports of Russian energy resources to the European market and in parallel began to look for new sources of supply chains. It would be emphasized that the volume of energy resources supplied from Azerbaijan via Georgia to Europe and the amount of cargo transportation from Asia through Georgia have increased significantly. This situation is certainly unacceptable for Russia and it's against of its national interests. Kremlin will try in every possible way to put pressure on Georgia because there is a historical principle: if you control Georgia, you control the whole Caucasus. That's why it's crucially important the Western support for Georgia. In order to keep the existing ties and strengthen them, West must make more brave steps towards Georgia. You should make more active steps which will accelerate Georgia's accession to the European Union. In this situation, it's vital to grant Georgia the EU candidate status by the end of this year. The candidate status will be a strong political message for Moscow that Europe stands with Georgia and Russia has no right to interfere in its internal affairs. Along with the European Union, Georgia's membership to NATO and international security guarantees are no less important. Georgia is ready for NATO membership and Georgia is fully compatible with NATO standards. The only obstacle is the political decision and the agreement of all the countries of the alliance. Georgia's membership in NATO will actually protect the entire region from the existing threat, and it will become a cornerstone of regional security and stability. With this thought, I would like to thank you all of you for attention, and I'm open to questions and comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for an excellent presentation, and happy to take comments or questions. I'm sure you've inspired many of us, especially given the situation now with Russia, Ukraine, and beyond. Let's start in the back.
Thank you. My question is that whoever is working for the peace, they will face like obstacles in their way. So how can the Georgian government resolve the conflict of South Ossetia border? Thank you. That was my question.
Can you repeat the last one? What can Georgian government?
How can they resolve the conflict? There is a conflict in the South Ossetia border in Georgia. So how can they overcome that particular problem?
Yeah.
That's my question. Thank you.
Maybe we can gather 3 questions and.
Additional questions, comments? Some Georgian perspectives? If not, then I guess maybe let's respond to that first.
Okay. Yes, the only solution to our conflicts is a peaceful policy. Especially we look at this issue positively after the war in Ukraine. There are Russian troops, but according to international law, Russia have to withdraw its military from our occupied territories. The only tool we have is diplomacy, political pressure, and some maybe sanctions or something like that. And there is no alternative to this. Some people are saying that if Russia will be weakened, you have to start a military confrontation with the Russian troops in South Ossetia, but it is against our governmental policy, and the only solution is peaceful settlement, negotiations, and international diplomatic attempts to solve this conflict.
Thank you very much for this very comprehensive presentation. There's one question that is being asked at different forums. Is the you spoke about the Georgian negotiation or mediation about Agdan.
Mm-hmm.
And also there is a problem of with Iran on the corridor
Mm-hmm.
to the Nakhchivan area.
Mm-hmm.
Could you please, give some more information about that and your comments and what lies ahead?
Yeah. First of all, we have, I didn't mention, but we have also good friendly relations with Iran. We have also trade with Iran in goods which are not sanctioned, and we have good friendly relationship. In this case, Georgia is not participating for this moment. Georgia is mediating only Armenia and Azerbaijan, but not Iran. In this format, Iran is not considered, but maybe in the future, if there will be any progress on this exact case between Armenia and Azerbaijan, maybe Iran can be engaged in this process. But for this moment, we are not considering Iran in this format.
I think one quick question. So right now, this is the fight between the old energy countries that's supplying oil to the EU. Am I correct? Georgia,
Yeah.
Russia, and Iran, because of the Nord Stream pipeline.
Georgia is not supplying with oil west. This is the oil and gas is coming is Azerbaijani gas and oil, and it goes through Georgia to Turkey, and from Turkey it is distributed to the Europe.
Got it.
This is
So
yes.
Georgia is not producing.
We are not. Unfortunately, we don't have oil and gas, but we have a lot of water, and we are, due to our water resources, we are building energy plants, hydro energy plants, and I mentioned that a new project is under elaboration. It's electricity line from Georgia to Hungary and Romania, and in this project, Georgia will produce electricity, and this will be Georgian electricity, which will go to Europe. But not, unfortunately, no oil and no
But
gas.
the real fight with Russia.
Georgia, it's like a transit hub
Transit
for.
Thank you for the clarification.
Anyone else? Yes, okay.
Hello. Well, thanks for the presentation. I think I have a question about, you mentioned Georgia and Ukraine both are willing to join the European Union, but as we know, Georgia is in a much better shape to possibly join it, right? Because of the current status of Ukraine. So I would like just to hear from a local perspective, is the population pro going into the union, recent polls and things like that, and also how Russia attack on Ukraine can perhaps make things more difficult for the Georgian intent.
Thank you. Thank you for a very interesting question. First of all, I would like to mention that when we were speaking about candidate status, unfortunately, we believe that this was not a fair decision. It was not a merit-based decision when European Union granted Ukraine and Moldova candidate status, but not for Georgia. I say it was not merit-based because, according to all documents, evaluations, or reports by European Union, Georgia was a front runner and was a champion if we compare in reforms, if we compare to Ukraine and Moldova. Georgia was always ahead, and even Ukrainian and Moldovan politicians and public servants or some organizations were coming to Georgia and importing to their countries our reforms. This is open information, and it was also recognized by European Union as well. It was more a geopolitical decision. So when you speak about the shape, I think that Georgia is still ahead of Ukraine and Moldova. And if when we speak about reforms and technical issues regarding the European integration criteria, and if now by the end of the year European Union will grant Georgia, we will make a merit-based decision this time, and we hope that European Union will do it because we have many meetings on daily basis. We are very actively interacting with all European Union member states. We have a very big support from European Union, and I hope that by the end of this year we will get the candidate status. And regarding the support of this process, about 89% of Georgian population is supporting our European integration path, and about 78 to 80% are supporting NATO integration. And regarding the effects of war in Ukraine, we're really afraid of the consequences of this war, and we are fully supporting Ukraine because we understand that if Russia will succeed in this conflict, even if there will be a peace agreement on Putin's conditions or something, and they will have even a small success, the next target will be Georgia. So, yes, so this is the situation, and we are fully supporting Ukraine, and we are sure that Ukraine will win this war, and this also will affect the restoration of Georgian territorial integrity and sovereignty.
Was there one more question? Yeah, okay. Stefan, do you have a mic?
Hi. So Mike, I wish Georgia good luck in entering the EU. I think from what you illustrated, it's on its way, which is great. My question is about the NATO membership. Even if the polls, and I'm not sure what polls and who was polled, but how is entering NATO membership in the interest of peace in the area and in the interest of Georgian citizens, all of them?
Yeah, from 1999, we consider NATO as the only international security guarantee, and also Georgian population realized this. In 2008 and 2008, the thing that Russia invaded Georgia, and this was because we did not have any security guarantees. So for this moment, Georgia is fully ready for NATO membership. We are fully compatible technically, but the obstacle is only the political decision. Some countries from alliance are not supporting Georgian NATO membership. So we are working with these countries, and I hope that finally we will succeed it. Before the war in Ukraine, the NATO was important only for Georgia. But now, if we take into consideration the geopolitical shifts, NATO needs Georgia in order to ensure its Black Sea presence and Black Sea security. So we don't have any other alternatives than NATO, and we are all of us are working on this issue, and this process has a full support for from Georgia. Also, our neighbors like Armenia and Azerbaijan are also supporting our NATO membership, because if we will become NATO members, the security situation will be much more stable in the region. So I can say that not only Georgia, but the whole region is supporting Georgia's NATO integration.
Okay, well, on that note, I think we should conclude. We're a little bit over schedule, but let's please express our sincere gratitude once again for an excellent presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.